This doctor has been recognised as one of Britain's leading paediatricians, an expert in child protection. He has accused these women of abusing their children and demanded their kids be separated from them.
If the parent is actually telling you a bunch of lies because they are actually responsible for the injury or illness, that's extremely difficult if you're a doctor.
During his career, he's been involved in over 100 cases where children have been taken from their families. He says he was always acting for the welfare of the child.
I want Dr. Southall to be stopped so that he can never, ever work as a doctor and harm any vulnerable child ever again.
They believe he abused the system and tried to further his career by illegally researching on their kids.
Was there any real science? Of course there wasn't. He was piddling about with children.
They've spent the last 20 years trying to destroy his career.
He has lost his High Court battle against a decision to strike him off the medical register.
Good God.
Accused of mother drugging and murdering her 10-year-old son.
I've spent the last 2 years trying to work out who was right.
The lies that are told by the parents doing this to their children are continuous. Everything's lies.
He's the only person I know who could make the word mother sound like a dirty word.
One way or another, this war is about to come to an end. David Southall is a hugely influential doctor.
You're going to be on the front with the ropes now.
He's also been described as enigmatic, zealous, and very dangerous. But it wasn't always like that.
From the moment every child goes into intensive care, you don't know how long it's going to be. You should be taking precautions from the beginning.
David is a man who loves a challenge. He began his career trying to unravel the mystery of cot death, something that continues to elude medical science.
I was focused heavily at that time on research. It was exciting. We were finding things out that had never been found out about babies and children. And we were publishing and we were getting invitations all over the world to present our work.
In the late 80s, the terrifying phenomenon of sudden infant death syndrome was attracting huge public interest. Then David stunned many of his colleagues when he came up with a radical and shocking theory. What if the parents themselves were causing these deaths?
Paediatricians were suddenly confronted with the fact that what they thought was a natural medical problem that they didn't understand was actually homicide.
David Southall, when he was involved in research, was prepared to think the unthinkable, prepared to consider possibilities that other people would have shied away from, such as the possibility that a child is having frequent episodes where they stop breathing, that they may be stopping breathing because somebody's putting a pillow over their face. For most of us, you think, crikey, that's an awful thing to say. How dare you say something so outrageous? For him, it was a clinical conundrum that had to be investigated.
David caused intense ethical debate when he gained permission to secretly record parents on a ward who he suspected were suffocating their children. David knew his idea was only a theory, and his reputation was on the line if he didn't get proof.
Nothing happened for a week. And it was getting very, very tense indeed in the hospital. Doing the clinical physiology work and making such a terrible accusation, which was, according to the evidence, and there was no evidence for it.
So you'd gone out on a limb here?
Correct. There's no doubt. There were people in the department who were very, very concerned. And then on a Saturday, I got a phone call from the police. We want you to come in. I come in, it's 100% obvious. Mother had suffocated the child with a T-shirt. No question about it. It's black and white. These children cannot breathe. And even though they're little, they're fighting. Even little babies are fighting to escape. And of course they can't escape because the adult is 10 times more powerful than they are. In this case, again, you've got babies on the mother's lap, and the mother is holding her hand across the nose and mouth, and the baby's struggling to breathe, arms and legs moving.
They're very shocking.
Yes. They are.
I don't know what to say, really.
This bizarre form of child abuse was called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Smothering was only one aspect of it. Parents were also accused of inventing their child's illness, often resulting in unnecessary major surgery. The condition gripped the nation, and stories of suspected cases flooded the media.
Doctors suspected that Andrew's mother had invented his medical condition. They believed she was suffering from a bizarre mental disorder.
David, who was fast becoming the leading expert, was swamped with hundreds of referrals from doctors across the country.
The researchers had got misled by the parents into believing there was something wrong with their baby's breathing, when actually it wasn't the baby that was the problem, it was the parent.
Some of his most contentious cases of alleged child abuse involved these mothers. Despite having no video evidence of them smothering their children, Dr. Southall insists their guilt is irrefutable.
Everybody's coming from the premise that everything that comes out of your mouth is a lie. You're this awful, awful piece of shit, quite frankly.
They've all made their names on the backs of us. They've all built their careers on it. That's what they've done.
My son's life and my life were nearly destroyed by Dr. Southall. He destroyed our lives. Sorry.
David Southall's meteoric rise in the world of medicine ran into trouble when he started accusing parents of harming their children.
This is far from the end of the matter for Professor David Southall.
He became the target of a vitriolic campaign led by the accused parents. But he still refuses to back down, and he has huge support from the medical establishment.
People who harm their children, and there are lots of, sadly, of parents who harm their children, will always, in many cases, claim they're innocent.
How are you going to do it?
I'm going to switch the kettle off.
Cup of tea behind us.
With sugar?
David is adamant that the parents are the cause of all the controversy.
You have to be careful about accepting everything you're told.
And is evangelical when explaining how deceptive they are.
Incredibly, the lies are told so plausibly.
Right.
The way that these people talk to you, you know, you would have no way could I think this nice-looking, intelligent mother is telling me a pack of lies.
I went to meet one of the accused mothers, Dee Hollisey McLean.
I think he's gone on strike.
Dee and her husband Dave have 4 kids. Dee told me her third son Ben was born with life-threatening breathing problems with no known cure.
Come on.
Ben loved life. He enjoyed life to the full, even though he had problems. He was great. He was a super kid.
Dee said that doctors had told her that Ben could die at any moment. And at the age of 5 months he was given a tracheostomy to help him breathe. She was desperate for help.
I'm one of the lucky ones because my baby Anne Hurd is under Dr. Southall from the Royal Brompton.
Yeah.
I am lucky.
I saw Dr. Southall on television one morning, one of the early morning chat shows, and he was talking about a monitor that he designed to record the oxygen levels on a baby.
Little did she realise her pursuit of a medical specialist was raising suspicions about her behaviour. There was a growing concern that she may be exaggerating Ben's condition to gain attention for herself. Remarkably, she had unwittingly chosen one of the few men qualified to act on these concerns. Dee believed she'd finally found someone able to help with Ben's chronic illness. But Dr. Southall was sceptical whether Ben had any problems in the first place.
Dr. Southall was claiming that, to quote him, Ben's parents are pursuing a rare and life-threatening illness on Ben's behalf. This illness does not exist and their behaviour is detrimental to his welfare. The allegations were just horrific. You know, I was accused of poisoning, smothering, all sorts of things that just couldn't have been further from the truth.
Dee and Dave were summoned to an emergency case conference, where Dr. Southall and a team of experts accused them both of causing Ben's breathing problems. This led to an order for Ben to be removed from the family home.
I can remember everybody getting up and leaving the room, and I just sat. I just couldn't believe or comprehend what had just gone on. All I remember is the disbelief and the devastation.
Ben was eventually returned to their care, but at some point he suffered brain damage, something Dee was also accused of causing.
I felt that I was robbed of my dignity. I lost all my integrity. I was robbed of all my aims. I had no values left.
Dee and Dave have never recovered from the impact of these times, and their lives have been consumed by the fallout ever since.
And if he was removed from our care, he would get better.
I just never in my wildest dreams ever thought that myself or Dave could be accused of anything like this, because nothing could ever have been further away from the truth, you know, and still to this day couldn't be. I would never harm a child, anybody's child, let alone my own.
There's an overwhelming sense of despair and betrayal from parents who believe they were falsely accused. But this feeling of betrayal can also be experienced by paediatricians.
People should not underestimate how difficult it is. We, most of the time, are clearly working with parents, and then to suddenly have to change our role and play a role rather like a policeman is an enormously difficult thing to do, and it causes many of us nightmares.
It's unfortunately a very common problem, and it's not something that society wants to know about, really. They want mothers to always love their children at all costs, never to hurt them, because that's how you want society to be. Yeah. The reality is very different.